Welcome, dear listeners, to a journey through time and shadow, where colonial grandeur meets supernatural terror. Today, we venture into the heart of Semarang, Indonesia, to explore one of Southeast Asia's most magnificent and most haunted structures, Lawang Sewu. The name itself sends shivers down the spines of those who know its reputation. Lawang Sewu, literally meaning thousand doors in Javanese, though the building actually contains 429 doors. But numbers become meaningless when dealing with a place where reality itself seems to bend and twist like the shadows that dance through its countless corridors. Picture a structure so imposing that it dominated the Semarang skyline for over a century. Imagine Art Deco architecture rising like a crown jewel from the tropical landscape, its countless windows reflecting not just light, but perhaps glimpses of another world entirely. This is Lawang Sewu, where the living and the dead have coexisted for generations. So settle back, dim the lights if you dare, and prepare yourself for a story that spans over a century of history, mystery, and the unexplained. This is the complete story of Lawang Sewu, from its glorious beginnings to its current status as Indonesia's premier supernatural destination. Our story begins in 1904, during the height of Dutch colonial power in Indonesia. The Nederlandse Indische Spoorwegmaatschappij, known as NIS, needed a headquarters that would reflect both their commercial success and the power of Dutch colonial rule. The man tasked with designing this monument was Professor Jacobus Klinkhammer, a brilliant Dutch architect known for his innovative tropical architecture. The groundbreaking ceremony took place on February 27, 1904, with great fanfare. Traditional Javanese offerings were made alongside Christian prayers, a blending of cultures that would prove prophetic for the building's future. Construction proved enormous, eventually covering over 18,000 square meters, making it one of the largest structures in the Dutch East Indies. Klinkhammer's genius lay in the architectural details. Understanding the tropical climate, he designed exceptional ventilation, with 429 doors and 928 windows, the origin of the famous 1,000 doors. Each opening was strategically positioned to create cross-ventilation, allowing oppressive tropical heat to flow through naturally. As construction progressed, strange incidents began occurring. Workers reported tools disappearing overnight, unexplained accidents, and healthy workers suddenly becoming ill and speaking in tongues they didn't understand. Local Javanese workers whispered that the site was cursed, once a sacred burial ground where ancestral spirits were displeased with colonial intrusion. One documented incident involved workers refusing to enter certain sections after sunset, claiming they could hear gamelan music echoing through partially completed corridors at night. When supervisors investigated, they found nothing but empty chambers and unfinished walls. Despite mysterious occurrences, construction continued. The central tower, rising 40 meters high, housed cutting-edge telecommunications equipment. The interior featured soaring ceilings, marble floors imported from Italy, and massive limestone columns. The building was designed to be fully electric from the beginning, revolutionary for 1907, with its own power generation facility. On October 1, 1907, Lawang Sewu officially opened. The inauguration ceremony was one of colonial Java's grandest events, attended by the Governor-General and hundreds of guests. From its imposing facade to innovative interior systems, Lawang Sewu represented the pinnacle of Dutch colonial achievement, designed to last centuries as a permanent symbol of European civilization in the tropics. As the first trains began coordinating through the new headquarters, as telegraph messages flowed through the central tower, no one could imagine they were creating not just a railway headquarters, but what would eventually become one of the world's. From 1907 to the late 1930s, Lawang Sewu was the beating heart of the Dutch East Indies railway system. Every morning at precisely 6 a.m., hundreds of employees would stream through those famous entrances. Dutch executives, Javanese clerks, telegraph operators, and workers representing colonial Java's multicultural complexity. The telegraph room in the central tower was the building's nerve center, operating 24 hours a day. Willem Kodik, a Dutch operator who worked there from 1912 to 1934, wrote that during night shifts, the building took on an entirely different character. Bustling daytime sounds faded, replaced by what he called the building's own voice, creaking panels, settling limestone, and whispered wind through hundreds of openings. Even during its golden age, employees reported unusual experiences. Kodik wrote about hearing footsteps in empty corridors during midnight shifts, seeing lights in vacant offices, and receiving telegraph messages from stations that didn't exist on any official railway map. The basement levels, used for storage and power generation, made workers uncomfortable. The sub-basement housing coal-fired steam engines was almost unbearable during day shifts, but night maintenance workers reported strange sounds echoing through mechanical rooms, sounds that didn't match any familiar equipment. Social events at Lawang Sewu were legendary. The grand halls hosted elaborate receptions and New Year's Eve parties with dancing until dawn. During these celebrations, security guards reported seeing elegantly dressed figures dancing in the main hall, long after parties ended and the building was locked. Couples waltzing through moonlight, only to find empty rooms when investigated. The building's telephone operators frequently received calls from locations not on official lists, conversations in unidentifiable languages, and most disturbing, calls from railway stations closed or destroyed years earlier. Maria Soekarno, an operator from 1920 to 1935, documented receiving calls at precisely 2:47 a.m. from kilometer post 127, a location that had never existed, with callers asking about discontinued train routes. As political tensions grew in the 1930s, the building's role evolved to include sensitive government communications. Military personnel became common, classified documents required special handling, and supernatural activity seemed to intensify. Perhaps stress made people more sensitive, or perhaps the building responded to changing energy within its walls. The last major celebration occurred on New Year's Eve 1941. By then, war raged in Europe, and Pacific tensions escalated. The party had a melancholy quality, as participants sensed an era ending. Within months, their world would be shattered forever, and Lawang Sewu's most traumatic period was about to begin. December 7th, 1941, changed everything. The Japanese invasion of Java began February 28, 1942, and by March 9th, Japanese troops had occupied Lawang Sewu. The magnificent structure representing Dutch authority would now serve as a visible reminder of Japanese power. Under occupation, Lawang Sewu became headquarters for the 16th Army's Transportation Division. The multicultural workforce was replaced by Japanese military personnel and forced laborers. Executive offices became military command centers. Elegant dining rooms became mess halls. The library became an interrogation center, and basement levels were transformed into detention facilities. The basement levels, previously used for storage, were converted into prison cells. Hundreds of political prisoners, resistance fighters, and ordinary citizens were held in horrific conditions. Overcrowding, inadequate food and water, no sanitation, complete isolation. Survivors described the basement as a vision of hell, with constant sounds of suffering echoing through limestone corridors. The most notorious area was the sub-basement, converted into an execution chamber. In rooms where steam engines once powered the building, prisoners were tortured and killed. Estimates suggest hundreds died within these walls, with bodies carried out during pre-dawn hours to unmarked mass graves outside Semarang. As the war progressed and Japan's situation deteriorated, conditions became increasingly desperate. The building, designed as a symbol of prosperity, became a monument to human suffering. Local resistance activities centered around Lawang Sewu, but those caught faced immediate execution in basement chambers. Supernatural activity intensified during occupation, reported by both Japanese personnel and local staff. Japanese officers saw figures in white clothing walking corridors at night, disappearing when approached. Local staff heard voices calling for help in unidentifiable languages. Most disturbing were reports of weeping that seemed to move through the building's structure, following corridors and stairwells, most frequently between midnight and dawn, when executions typically occurred. As Japan's defeat became inevitable, personnel began destroying evidence. Documents burned, equipment dismantled, attempts made to clean basement areas. On August 15, 1945, Japan surrendered, and within days the last personnel had fled, leaving behind a building fundamentally transformed by 3.5 years of occupation. When investigators finally accessed all areas, they discovered the full extent of horrors. Basement chambers revealed evidence of torture and execution. Sub-basement areas contained human remains and improvised execution devices. Most disturbing was evidence of mass burials within the building itself. Victims buried beneath basement floors rather than transported outside. The psychological impact extended far beyond immediate witnesses. Lawang Sewu's reputation was forever changed, from colonial administrative center to site of profound trauma, where the barrier between life and death had been permanently weakened. Local residents began reporting supernatural encounters even before official reopening. Lights in empty windows, sounds of distress, figures in white clothing looking out as if seeking help that would never come. The war years had transformed Lawang Sewu from a place of colonial efficiency into something far darker. The elegant architecture remained, but the building's soul had been fundamentally altered. As Indonesian independence loomed, Lawang Sewu stood as a monument to traumatic transition, a building that had symbolized Dutch colonial power and Japanese military occupation, now marked forever by the spirits of those who died within its walls. The end of World War II marked Lawang Sewu's transformation from active administrative center into Indonesia's most haunted building. When Dutch forces briefly returned in late 1945, they found the building in shocking decay, but more disturbing was how it felt fundamentally different, as if the atmosphere had been permanently altered by witnessed trauma. Major Willem van Houten's official report noted, "Unusual atmospheric conditions, making prolonged stays inadvisable." His private letters described voices in empty rooms, sudden temperature drops in tropical heat, and persistent sensations of being watched by unseen observers. Restoration efforts were hampered by supernatural obstacles. Work crews reported disappearing tools, electrical systems failing without cause, and unusually high accident rates. Workers refused to work alone in certain areas, particularly basement levels where so much suffering had occurred. Indonesian workers recognized the building as Angkor, a place where spiritual energy had become dangerous. They performed protective rituals before entering certain areas, understanding what Dutch supervisors dismissed as imagination. The building exhibited classic signs: sudden mood changes in occupants, malfunctioning electronics, unusual animal behavior, and presence of spiritual entities. One of the first documented post-war encounters occurred in March 1946, when Dutch supervisor Peter Johansson saw a figure in a white tropical suit in the Director General's office. When he approached, the figure vanished, leaving only tobacco smoke scent. This colonial manager became one of hundreds of similar reports, a middle-aged Dutch man still conducting administrative rounds decades after death. Indonesia's independence struggle and subsequent Dutch withdrawal left Lawang Sewu abandoned for extended periods. During these empty years, local residents reported the most intense supernatural activity. The building seemed to come alive at night, lights appearing in empty windows, sounds of busy office work, and most famously, the phantom train that locals claimed could be heard arriving at the nearby station precisely at midnight, though no tracks led there anymore. The Indonesian government eventually took control, but struggled with what to do with such a massive, historically significant, yet spiritually disturbing structure. Various plans were proposed, converting it to government offices, a museum, a hotel, but each attempt was abandoned due to construction problems, funding issues, and consistently reported supernatural encounters, by anyone spending significant time in the building. During the 1970s and 80s, Lawang Sewu gained national attention as Indonesia's premier ghost story. Local newspapers regularly featured accounts of supernatural encounters, and the building became a pilgrimage site for those seeking paranormal experiences. Urban explorers, ghost hunters, and curious teenagers regularly broke into the abandoned structure, often emerging with stories that added to the growing legend. The most commonly reported phenomena included the colonial manager continuing his eternal rounds, sounds of typing and telephone conversations from empty offices, elevator operating by itself, stopping at floors where no one waited, basement voices calling for help in various languages, and the White Lady, believed to be a Dutch woman who died during the Japanese occupation, seen walking corridors searching for someone who never returned. Paranormal investigators from around the world began visiting Lawang Sewu in the 1990s, drawn by its reputation and tragic history. Their findings consistently supported local accounts. Electromagnetic anomalies, temperature fluctuations, electronic voice phenomena, and photographic anomalies suggested genuine supernatural activity rather than folklore or imagination. Dr. Sarah Chen, a paranormal researcher from Singapore, spent a week in the building in 1995. Her published findings described Lawang Sewu as one of the most spiritually active locations in Southeast Asia, with supernatural phenomena occurring with remarkable consistency and intensity. Her team documented over 200 separate incidents during their stay, including voices, apparitions, and physical manifestations. The Indonesian government finally decided to preserve Lawang Sewu as a historical monument in the 2000s. Restoration began in 2007, exactly 1 century after the building's original opening. However, even this restoration was plagued by mysterious incidents. Workers reported the same phenomena that had troubled previous renovation attempts: disappearing tools, unexplained accidents, and electrical problems. Modern security systems installed during restoration frequently malfunctioned. Motion sensors triggered without apparent cause, security cameras recorded anomalous figures, and alarm systems activated randomly. Security guards working night shifts consistently reported supernatural encounters, leading to high turnover rates and difficulty maintaining adequate security coverage. Today, Lawang Sewu operates as a museum and cultural center, but its reputation as Indonesia's most haunted building remains unchanged. Guided tours include both historical information and acknowledgement of supernatural phenomena. Visitors frequently report their own experiences: feelings of being watched, sudden temperature changes, glimpses of figures that shouldn't be there, and sounds from empty areas of the building. The building's spiritual activity appears to follow patterns related to its traumatic history. The basement levels remain the most active areas, with visitors reporting voices, cold spots, and overwhelming feelings of sadness and despair. The upper floors, associated with the colonial period, feature more benign phenomena: the colonial manager, phantom office sounds, and glimpses of life from a bygone era. Recent electromagnetic field studies have identified several areas of unusual energy concentration, particularly in locations where historical records indicate the most severe wartime atrocities occurred. These findings suggest that extreme emotional trauma may indeed leave lasting impressions on physical locations, supporting traditional Indonesian beliefs about spiritual energy and sacred spaces. As we reach the end of our journey through Lawang Sewu's haunted history, we must ask ourselves, what makes this place so spiritually active? Is it simply the power of suggestion, the accumulated weight of tragic stories, or something more fundamental about the relationship between human suffering and physical space? The evidence suggests that Lawang Sewu represents something unique, a location where multiple layers of trauma, spanning different historical periods and cultural contexts, have created a permanent spiritual disturbance. The building has witnessed colonial oppression, wartime atrocities, post-war abandonment, and decades of fear and fascination. Each layer has added to its supernatural reputation. Perhaps the key to understanding Lawang Sewu lies in the Indonesian concept of collective memory, the idea that significant events leave permanent impressions on the places where they occurred. The building serves as a repository for over a century of human emotion, from the pride of colonial achievement to the terror of wartime occupation, to the curiosity of modern visitors seeking paranormal encounters. Today, Lawang Sewu stands as both a monument to human achievement and a reminder of human cruelty. Its 1,000 doors have opened and closed on countless human dramas, and its countless windows have witnessed both the best and worst of human nature. The building endures, its elegant architecture a testament to colonial ambition, its spiritual activity a reminder that some wounds never fully heal. Visitors to Lawang Sewu today often report feeling overwhelmed by the building's emotional intensity. Some describe it as sadness, others as fear, still others as a profound sense of historical weight. What most agree upon is that the building feels alive, not with the mechanical life of a functioning institution, but with the spiritual energy of all those who lived, worked, suffered, and died within its walls. The colonial manager continues his eternal rounds, checking offices that will never again bustle with commercial activity. The basement victims continue calling for help that will never arrive. The White Lady continues searching for someone who will never return. These spiritual residents of Lawang Sewu have become part of the building's identity, as integral to its character as its limestone columns and teakwood panels. Perhaps this is Lawang Sewu's ultimate lesson, that buildings are more than mere structures of stone and steel. They are repositories of human experience, witnesses to our triumphs and tragedies, monuments to our capacity for both creation and destruction. In its 1,000 doors and countless windows, in its soaring halls and hidden chambers, Lawang Sewu holds the memories of all who entered its embrace. As you listen to these final words, remember that Lawang Sewu still stands in Semarang, its doors still opening to visitors brave enough to encounter its spirits. Whether you believe in ghosts or not, whether you see supernatural activity as genuine or psychological, the building remains a powerful reminder of history's lasting impact on the places we inhabit. The 1,000 doors of Lawang Sewu have told their story, a tale of ambition and tragedy, of life and death, of the thin barrier that separates the world of the living from whatever lies beyond. In its halls, the past is never truly past, and the echoes of history continue to whisper through its corridors, waiting for those who dare to listen. Thank you for joining us on this journey through one of the world's most haunted buildings. May you sleep well tonight, and may your dreams be free of phantom footsteps and spectral voices calling from beyond the grave. Next on tonight's menu is a place located deep in the rugged hills of Rajasthan, India. This is a place that is so terrifying that the Archaeological Survey of India has officially banned entry to this building after sunset. This place is Bhangarh Fort, a 17th century fortress that stands as India's most haunted location and perhaps one of the most supernaturally active places on the entire planet. This isn't just another ghost story. This is the tale of a once magnificent city that rose from ambitious dreams, flourished under royal patronage, and then vanished into cursed ruins within a single generation. Today, even the Indian government acknowledges something unspeakable lurks within these crumbling walls, something so dangerous that legal prosecution awaits anyone foolish enough to spend a night within the fort's boundaries. But what happened here? How did a thriving 17th century city become a forbidden wasteland? And why do the ruins of Bhangarh continue to inspire such terror that locals refuse to speak its name after dark? Join me as we uncover the complete story of Bhangarh Fort, from its glorious beginning to its mysterious abandonment, and the supernatural legacy that haunts it still. Our story begins in 1573, in the court of the great Mughal Emperor Akbar, where ambition and opportunity converged to create what would become both an architectural masterpiece and a supernatural nightmare. The man at the center of this tale was Raja Bhagwant Das, a Rajput nobleman who had earned Akbar's favor through military service and political acumen. Raja Bhagwant Das was no ordinary courtier. He was the ruler of Amber, modern-day Jaipur, and one of Akbar's most trusted generals. In recognition of his loyal service, Akbar granted him a vast tract of land in the Alwar district of Rajasthan, a strategically important region that controlled trade routes between Delhi and the Rajputana kingdoms. But it was Bhagwant Das's son, Mansingh I, who would transform this royal gift into reality. Mansingh was a brilliant military commander and visionary urban planner who understood that true power required more than military might. It demanded magnificent cities that would stand as monuments to dynasty and divine favor. The 1573 construction began on what would become Bhangarh. The name itself reflects the grand ambition of the project. Ban, referring to the royal lineage, and Gar, meaning fort or stronghold. But Mansingh envisioned more than a simple fortress. He planned an entire city that would rival the great capitals of the Mughal Empire. The location chosen for Bhangarh was both strategically brilliant and, according to local legend, spiritually dangerous. The fort was built on elevated ground that commanded views of the surrounding valleys, with natural defenses provided by the Aravalli Hills. Ancient trade routes passed directly through the area, ensuring that Bhangarh would become a crucial commercial hub. However, local tribal communities warned that the chosen site was sacred to ancient spirits. The area had been used for centuries as a meditation retreat by Hindu and Jain ascetics, and numerous temples dotted the landscape. Most significantly, it was said to be the dwelling place of Guru Balu Nath, a powerful tantric saint whose blessings were essential for any construction project in the region. Mansingh, being a devout Hindu despite his service to the Muslim Mughal court, took these warnings seriously. According to historical accounts, he personally visited Guru Balu Nath to seek permission for the construction. The saint agreed, but with one crucial condition. No structure in the new city could cast a shadow on his meditation retreat, located on a higher hill nearby. This condition would prove prophetic, but for now, Mansingh agreed readily. Construction began with great ceremony, combining the architectural traditions of Rajputana with influences from Mughal court culture. The fort complex was designed to accommodate not just military functions, but an entire urban community: palaces, temples, markets, residential quarters, and administrative buildings. The main palace, known as the Raja's Palace, was a masterpiece of the 16th century Indo-Islamic architecture. Built around multiple courtyards, it featured intricate stone carvings, elaborate jolly work, perforated stone screens, and sophisticated water management systems that channeled monsoon rains through decorative fountains and storage tanks. The Hawa Mahal, or Palace of Winds, was designed as the royal women's quarters. This multi-story structure featured hundreds of small windows and balconies that allowed the royal ladies to observe city life while maintaining purdah. The elaborate ventilation system kept the interiors cool, even during Rajasthan's scorching summers. Bhangarh's temple complex was equally impressive. The main Someshwar temple, dedicated to Lord Shiva, was built using traditional Nagara architectural style with a towering shikara, spire, that could be seen for miles across the desert landscape. Smaller temples dedicated to Hanuman, Ganesha, and other deities created a spiritual center that attracted pilgrims from across northern India. The city's planning reflected advanced urban design principles. Wide boulevards connected major buildings, smaller streets formed a grid pattern for residential areas, and an elaborate drainage system prevented flooding during monsoons. Markets were strategically located near the main gates to capture passing trade, while artisan quarters were positioned to take advantage of prevailing winds for workshops requiring fire or chemical processes. By 1580, just 7 years after construction began, Bhangarh had transformed from empty hillside into a thriving metropolis. The city attracted merchants, craftsmen, scholars, and artists from across the Mughal Empire. Its strategic location made it a crucial stop on trade routes carrying goods between Central Asia, Delhi, and the ports of Gujarat. The population quickly grew to over 10,000 inhabitants, making Bhangarh one of the largest cities in Rajasthan. The royal court patronized arts and literature, hosting renowned poets, musicians, and scholars. The city's workshops produced fine textiles, jewelry, weapons, and decorative arts that were exported throughout the Mughal territories. Man Singh's vision had been realized beyond his wildest dreams. Bhangarh had become not just a fortress city, but a center of culture, commerce, and political power. The Raja's influence extended throughout Rajasthan and into the Mughal court, where he served as one of Akbar's most trusted generals. But even at the height of its prosperity, disturbing signs suggested that Bhangarh's future was not secure. Local residents reported strange phenomena: voices in empty buildings, lights moving through the palace at night, and an unusually high number of accidents during construction projects. Some blamed these incidents on the city's rapid growth and the mixing of different cultural traditions. Others whispered that ancient spirits were displeased with the disturbance of their sacred grounds. As the 16th century drew to a close, Bhangarh stood as a testament to Rajput ambition and Mughal patronage. Its palaces gleamed in the desert sun, its temples rang with devotional music, and its markets bustled with international commerce. No one could have imagined that within a few decades, this magnificent city would be reduced to cursed ruins that even the bravest warriors would fear to enter after dark. The stage was set for one of history's most mysterious urban disasters, a catastrophe so complete and inexplicable that it would transform Bhangarh from a symbol of royal power into India's most feared haunted location. From 1580 to 1630, Bhangarh experienced its golden age, 50 years during which the city thrived as one of Rajasthan's most prosperous and culturally significant urban centers. To understand the magnitude of what was lost when Bhangarh fell under its mysterious curse, we must first appreciate the vibrant life that once filled its now silent streets. Daily life in Bhangarh began before dawn with the call of muezzins from the small mosque near the main gate and the sound of temple bells echoing across the city. Despite being ruled by Hindu Rajas, Bhangarh was remarkably cosmopolitan, with Hindu, Muslim, and Jain communities coexisting peacefully within the city walls. The main bazaar, stretching from the Lahori Gate to the palace complex, was the heart of the city's commercial life. Here, merchants from across the Mughal Empire established permanent shops, selling everything from Central Asian carpets to Gujarati textiles, from Damascus steel to Chinese porcelain. The air was thick with the scents of cardamom, saffron, sandalwood, and the smoke from countless small restaurants serving regional delicacies. Princess Ratnavati was born into this prosperous world in 1604, the daughter of Raja Madho Singh, Man Singh's successor. Contemporary accounts describe her as extraordinarily beautiful, accomplished in classical arts, and possessed of a sharp intelligence that impressed even the sophisticated courtiers who visited from Delhi and Agra. The princess's daily routine reflected the cultural sophistication of Bhangarh's royal court. Mornings were devoted to classical music lessons with masters from the Mughal court, afternoons to poetry and literature, and evenings to dance performances in the palace's marble-floored halls. She was fluent in Sanskrit, Persian, and several regional languages, and her personal library contained works by the greatest poets and philosophers of the Islamic and Hindu traditions. But Princess Ratnavati was more than a cultural ornament. She took an active interest in the city's administration, frequently accompanying her father on tours of construction projects and participating in court sessions where petitions from citizens were heard. Her intelligence and compassion made her beloved throughout Bhangarh, and by the time she reached marriageable age, her beauty and accomplishments were legendary throughout northern India. The city's artisan quarters produced some of the finest crafts in the Mughal Empire. The jewelry makers of Bhangarh were particularly renowned, creating elaborate pieces that combined Rajput warrior traditions with Mughal court elegance. Their workshops, located in the shadow of the main palace, rang with the sounds of hammering, filing, and polishing as master craftsmen created pieces worthy of emperors and queens. Textile production was equally important to Bhangarh's economy. The city's weavers specialized in fine cotton and silk fabrics that were exported to Delhi, Lahore, and even Central Asia. The tie-dye techniques developed in Bhangarh's workshops influenced textile production throughout Rajasthan and continue to be practiced in the region today. The palace complex itself was a marvel of 17th-century architecture and engineering. The main Durbar Hall, where the Raja held court, featured a ceiling supported by dozens of intricately carved pillars, each depicting scenes from Hindu mythology. The walls were decorated with murals showing hunting scenes, court ceremonies, and religious festivals, painted by artists whose techniques had been perfected in the workshops of Akbar and Jahangir. The royal gardens were equally impressive. Designed in the Mughal Charbagh style, they featured geometric patterns of flower beds, fruit trees, and water channels that created cooling microclimates in the desert heat. The sound of flowing water was constant throughout the palace complex, as an elaborate system of wells, tanks, and channels brought water from distant springs in the Aravalli Hills. Religious life in Bhangarh was remarkably diverse and tolerant. The main Someshwar temple attracted Hindu pilgrims from across northern India, while the smaller Hanuman temple was particularly popular with the city's warrior class. The Jain temples, built by the city's prosperous merchant community, featured some of the finest stone carving in Rajasthan. Even more fascinating was the presence of tantric practitioners who had established retreats in the hills surrounding the city. These ascetics practiced advanced forms of yoga and meditation, and their presence added an air of mystical power to Bhangarh's spiritual atmosphere. Local residents often consulted them for healing, spiritual guidance, and predictions about the future. It was among this community of tantric practitioners that the man who would ultimately destroy Bhangarh first appeared. Known as Singhiya, he was a practitioner of the dark arts, black magic and tantric rituals designed to manipulate supernatural forces for personal gain. Unlike the benevolent ascetics who lived in harmony with the city, Singhiya harbored ambitions that would prove catastrophic. The city's festival celebrations were legendary throughout Rajasthan. Holi, the spring festival of colors, transformed Bhangarh into a riot of colored powders, music, and dancing that continued for days. Diwali brought elaborate displays of oil lamps that illuminated every building in the city, creating a spectacle visible from miles away across the desert. Most magnificent of all were the celebrations marking royal occasions, births, marriages, and victories in battle. The entire city would participate in these festivals, with processions featuring elephants, camels, horses, and musicians parading through the streets, while flowers were scattered from palace balconies and temple towers. During these golden years, Bhangarh also served as an important military center. The city's strategic location made it a crucial base for Rajput armies defending against invasions from the northwest, while its wealth helped finance military expeditions in service of the Mughal Empire. The Raja's cavalry was particularly renowned, with horses bred specifically for desert warfare and equipped with the finest weapons produced in the city's armories. The cultural synthesis achieved in Bhangarh was remarkable for its time. Hindu Rajas patronized Muslim artists. Islamic architectural techniques were combined with Hindu decorative traditions, and court ceremonies blended Rajput martial customs with Mughal diplomatic protocols. This fusion created a unique cultural environment that attracted visitors from across the known world. Educational institutions flourished under royal patronage. The city's madrasas taught Islamic theology and law, while traditional gurukulas provided instruction in Sanskrit literature, mathematics, and astronomy. The palace library contained manuscripts in multiple languages and scripts, making it one of the most comprehensive collections in northern India. Trade routes passing through Bhangarh carried more than goods. They also transmitted ideas, technologies, and cultural practices that enriched the city's intellectual life. Scholars from Central Asia debated with Hindu philosophers, Persian poets collaborated with Sanskrit writers, and craftsmen shared techniques that enhanced the quality of local production. As the 1620s progressed, Bhangarh had reached the pinnacle of its prosperity and influence. The city's population exceeded 15,000, making it one of the largest urban centers in Rajasthan. Its markets were famous throughout the Mughal Empire, its artisans were sought after by royalty, and its cultural achievements were celebrated in courts from Delhi to the Deccan. Princess Ratnavati had grown into a legendary beauty, whose fame spread far beyond Rajasthan's borders. Suitors arrived from distant kingdoms seeking her hand in marriage, bringing with them gifts of unprecedented magnificence. The princess, now in her early 20s, had become not just a symbol of Bhangarh's cultural achievements, but also a crucial political asset in the complex diplomatic relationships between Rajput kingdoms and the Mughal court. But even at the height of its golden age, subtle signs suggested that Bhangarh's prosperity was fragile. Residents reported increasingly frequent supernatural encounters, mysterious figures seen in empty buildings, voices calling from unoccupied rooms, and objects moving without apparent cause. These incidents were usually dismissed as products of imagination or explained away as the natural result of living in a city built on ancient sacred grounds. More disturbing were reports from the hills surrounding the city, where local villagers claimed to have seen dark rituals being performed under the new moon. Strange lights appeared on remote hilltops, unusual sounds echoed across the valleys, and animals exhibited behavior that suggested they were sensing something humans could not perceive. The tantric Singya had spent years building his power and influence, studying the darkest aspects of supernatural manipulation, while maintaining a facade of respectability. His ultimate goal was not spiritual enlightenment, but worldly power, and he had fixed his obsession on the most beautiful and unattainable prize in all of Rajasthan, Princess Ratnavati herself. As the 1630s began, Bhangarh stood at the peak of its glory, unaware that forces were already in motion that would transform it from India's most prosperous city into its most feared, haunted ruin. The Golden Age was about to end in the most catastrophic way possible, leaving behind only cursed ruins and supernatural terror that persists to this day. The year 1630 began like any other in the prosperous city of Bhangarh. Markets bustled with trade, craftsmen worked in their shops, and Princess Ratnavati, now 26 and at the height of her legendary beauty, presided over a court that had become one of the most sophisticated in northern India. But beneath this veneer of normalcy, dark forces were stirring that would soon transform paradise into hell. Singya, the tantric sorcerer who had spent years lurking in the hills around Bhangarh, had finally perfected his plan to possess the princess. His obsession with Ratnavati had grown into a consuming madness that drove him to explore the darkest corners of black magic. He had made pacts with malevolent spirits, performed blood sacrifices under new moons, and studied forbidden texts that most practitioners feared to even touch. The opportunity he had been waiting for finally arrived during the spring festival of 1630. Princess Ratnavati, following royal custom, sent her maidservant to the city's perfume market to purchase attar, the precious essential oils that were a specialty of Bhangarh's artisan quarter. Singya had been watching and waiting for exactly this moment. Disguising himself as a legitimate perfume merchant, he set up a stall in the market square, displaying bottles of the finest quality oils and essences. His plan was diabolically clever. He would enchant a bottle of perfume with the most powerful love charm he could create, ensuring that whoever used it would fall madly in love with him. When the princess's maidservant approached his stall, Singya presented her with a bottle of rose attar, so exquisite and fragrant that she immediately selected it for her mistress. But as soon as money changed hands, the sorcerer began his incantation, pouring all his accumulated dark power into the innocent-looking bottle. The maidservant returned to the palace, unaware that she carried not a beauty enhancement, but a weapon of supernatural destruction. She presented the perfume to Princess Ratnavati, who was preparing for an evening court ceremony. The princess, delighted with the unusual quality of the fragrance, was about to apply it when something made her hesitate. Whether it was intuition, divine protection, or simply the wariness that came from years of palace intrigue, Princess Ratnavati sensed something wrong with the perfume. Instead of applying it to her skin, she threw the bottle to the ground, shattering it on the marble floor of her chamber. But Singhia's magic was too powerful to be destroyed so easily. As the enchanted oil spread across the floor, it began to transform. Instead of seeping into the stone, it rose from the ground, taking the shape of a massive boulder that rolled with supernatural force directly toward the tantric sorcerer who had created it. The boulder found Singhia in his hiding place and crushed him instantly, but not before he had time to pronounce the most terrible curse in the history of Indian black magic. With his dying breath, he called upon every dark spirit he had ever summoned, every malevolent force he had ever contacted, to descend upon Bhangarh and destroy everything within its walls. Let this city that rejected me become a wasteland where no soul can find peace. Let every living thing within these walls die within the year, and let their spirits remain trapped here forever, unable to find rest or redemption. Let Bhangarh become a place of such terror that even the bravest warriors will flee in horror, and let it remain cursed until the end of time. The effects of the curse began immediately. That very night, residents of Bhangarh reported unprecedented supernatural activity. Doors slammed shut on their own. Extinguished lamps rekindled themselves with flames that gave no heat, and voices of unknown origin echoed through empty rooms and corridors. Within days, the city's animals began behaving strangely. Horses refused to leave their stables. Dogs howled continuously throughout the night, and birds abandoned their nests en masse, creating an eerie silence during what should have been the busy daytime hours. The city's famous peacocks, which had strutted proudly through the royal gardens, simply vanished overnight. Princess Ratnavati was the first victim, falling ill within a week with a mysterious ailment no physician could treat. She suffered terrifying nightmares, and her chambers remained unnaturally cold despite the desert heat. The illness spread rapidly. The Raja fell into a coma. Court officials showed signs of madness, and servants fled in terror after seeing apparitions throughout the palace, including the ghostly form of Singhia himself. The curse's effects engulfed the entire city. Shopkeepers reported merchandise moving on its own. Craftsmen found tools mysteriously broken each morning, and families were awakened by voices calling from empty rooms. Most disturbing were reports of time distortion. People entering buildings for minutes emerged convinced hours had passed, while brief visits to certain areas seemed to last days. Religious leaders attempted to counter the curse through prayer and ritual purification, but temple lamps exploded during ceremonies. Sacred texts were found torn each morning, and priests reported physical attacks by invisible entities. Trade caravans began avoiding Bhangarh entirely, claiming they could sense malevolent forces from miles away. The few who ventured inside found markets abandoned mid-transaction, with merchandise scattered as if merchants had fled instantly. Princess Ratnavati died in autumn 1630, marking a turning point where supernatural harassment became outright warfare. Residents reported attacks by invisible entities and objects flying through the air with deadly force. The final exodus was swift and complete. By early 1631, Bhangarh's 15,000 residents had scattered across northern India, too terrified to remain in the region. Government records show normal tax revenues through mid-1630, then nothing. Even the Mughal administration made no effort to resettle this valuable location. By 1632, nature reclaimed the abandoned city, but supernatural activity remained constant. Travelers reported lights in empty palaces, phantom voices, and apparitions of former residents who seemed unaware they had died. Singhia's curse had succeeded completely, transforming India's most prosperous city into a place of eternal terror, where not even death could provide escape from supernatural imprisonment. For nearly 4 centuries, Bhangarh has stood as India's most haunted ruin. Unlike other ghost stories, this one carries official recognition. The Indian government has banned entry between sunset and sunrise. It isn't tourism management, it's supernatural quarantine. Locals avoid the fort after dark, and even by day, visitors report unsettling phenomena. Phantom markets, sudden chills in desert heat, and shadows moving where no people stand. Soldiers, colonists, and archaeologists across generations all recorded the same strange activity. Malfunctioning equipment, phantom voices, and even vivid apparitions. The most feared is the ghost of Princess Ratnavati, said to wander her ruined palace, appearing real until she vanishes into nothing. Cold spots, drained batteries, and unexplained attacks have led guides to warn. This is no ordinary ruin. Some doors are better left closed. At Bhangarh, the past never truly rests.